Astrid Reed, 35, is a highly successful marketing director at a prestigious advertising firm in Charleston, South Carolina. It's despite her thriving career and the respect she commands from her colleagues, her marriage to Sawyer Reed, a cold and distant software developer, is on the brink of collapse. The prolonged silence and underlying tensions have made their relationship almost irreparable. In an effort to save their marriage, they made a bold decision to engage in a partner-swapping relationship with another couple, Giselle and Cedric Thorne. However, instead of easing the tension, Astrid soon realized that Giselle had become increasingly obsessed with Sawyer to the point of possessiveness. This left Astrid feeling betrayed in her own home. Despite the turmoil in her personal life, Astrid remained professional at work. She didn't allow her personal issues to affect her job and always maintained a strong appearance. However, deep down, she was determined to confront the situation. Astrid arranged to meet the Thornes to confront them about what was happening, hoping to resolve the issue head-on and put an end to the chaos. But tragedy struck on the morning of July 15th, 2022. Sawyer found Astrid lying motionless on the floor, her face covered in bruises, clear signs of a brutal assault. All attempts to revive her were futile. Astrid had passed away. Her sudden death shocked and pained those who knew her, turning the incident into a media sensation. The police quickly launched an investigation, and from the initial findings, they determined that this was no accident. Detectives Beatrix Moore and Dorian Blake discovered several unusual clues at the scene, including a blood-stained candlestick, possibly the murder weapon, and evidence of a violent struggle before Astrid's death. The killer seemed to have attempted to cover up the evidence, leaving the scene chaotic and more confusing than ever. Sawyer became the prime suspect since he couldn't provide an alibi for the night of the crime, especially since he and Astrid no longer shared a bedroom. The lack of clear evidence, combined with rumors about their partner-swapping arrangement, only added to the suspicion surrounding him. With no signs of forced entry, Detectives Moore and Blake suspected that Astrid's attacker was someone she trusted. Giselle Thorne's possessiveness and jealousy quickly made her the primary suspect. The complicated relationship between the four individuals turned the case into a tangled web, forcing the detectives to delve deeply into every detail. The blood-stained candlestick and the faint traces at the crime scene were sent to the lab for analysis. Astrid's body was also examined to determine the cause of death. Detectives Moore and Blake knew that one strong fingerprint or DNA sample could unravel the entire mystery. Meanwhile, Sawyer, despite his grief, buried himself in work to escape reality. His long nights working late with noise-canceling headphones only distanced him further from Astrid. Friends revealed that Astrid had sought help from a therapist due to feeling lonely in her own home, which further intensified suspicion around Sawyer, though he firmly denied any wrongdoing. The investigation began to stall due to a lack of direct evidence implicating Sawyer. On July 15th, he was summoned to the police station. Looking weary, Sawyer recounted the ups and downs of their 10-year marriage, admitting that participating in the partner-swapping arrangement wasn't his idea, but he agreed to it to keep peace at home. At first, Giselle Thorne was merely a curious woman, but Sawyer's cold and restrained demeanor quickly drew her, in Giselle's bold and fiery personality sharply contrasted with Sawyer's calmness, creating an irresistible attraction for her late-night phone calls, and frequent, uninvited appearances at Sawyer's workplace became more frequent, increasing the tension between him and Astrid. Recognizing the danger in Giselle's obsession, Astrid decided to sever ties with the Thornes to protect her family from Giselle's looming threat. On the night of the murder, however, Sawyer claimed that he had worked late into the night, wearing headphones the entire time. The fact that they had not shared a bedroom only added to the police's suspicions. Detectives Moore and Blake wondered if anyone other than Sawyer had a motive to kill Astrid. Beneath Giselle's composed exterior, Moore detected a deep-seated instability. Her suspicions were not merely based on jealousy, but seemed to suggest a motive that had crossed a dangerous line into reckless behavior. Unable to sit idly by as he was wrongfully accused, Sawyer decided to conduct his own investigation to clear his name and defend Astrid's honor. Private conversations between him and Giselle became a focal point for Detective Blake's surveillance. Blake soon realized that this relationship was only complicating things further. Sawyer admitted that Giselle's persistent advances made him uncomfortable, but he maintained that he had never betrayed Astrid. The tension escalated to the point where Giselle's husband, Cedric, began to grow jealous and suspicious of their interactions. Just days before Astrid's death, she had cut off all contact with the Thorns, but it was already too late. Even though Sawyer was willing to cooperate with the police and provided all the necessary information, Detectives Moore and Blake still lacked enough evidence to remove him from the list of suspects. On July 16th, Giselle Thorne was summoned to the Charleston Police Department. She arrived with a provocative air of confidence, openly admitting that she had strong feelings for Sawyer and blaming Astrid for forcing them into the partner-swapping arrangement. Giselle claimed that she had only participated out of curiosity and had no intentions of being possessive. However, as the interrogation delved into more specific details, Giselle's confidence began to falter. She couldn't hide the fact that she had contacted Sawyer numerous times privately, even suggesting that he leave Astrid late-night texts and phone calls, filled with subtle threats, revealed that her obsession had gone far beyond the boundaries of a normal relationship. Giselle's intense emotions not only heightened the tension between the two families, but also placed her firmly at the top of the list of suspects. Detective Moore sensed that Giselle's obsession was not just rooted in jealousy, but also in control. Moore began to suspect that Giselle might have killed Astrid to remove the emotional barrier between her and Sawyer. However, despite these growing suspicions, there wasn't enough evidence yet to charge her. Each time Giselle and Sawyer were questioned, the tension between them became more apparent, as if they were hiding a horrifying secret. When confronted about the messages she had sent Sawyer before and after Astrid's death, Giselle grew visibly flustered, trying to dismiss them as jokes. Her conflicting statements only deepened the detective's doubts about her true role in the crime. Giselle remained smug and defiant in her answers, believing she had covered her tracks flawlessly. But Detective Blake proposed a bold theory. Could Giselle have deliberately framed Sawyer by creating false evidence, using the marital tension between him and Astrid to mislead the investigation? While the theory made sense, they needed more concrete proof to back it up. Moore and Blake decided to closely monitor Giselle's every move, waiting for her to slip up and reveal the truth. After her interrogation, though allowed to leave the police station, she was forbidden from leaving Charleston. On the outside, Giselle's confidence was merely a mask hiding the growing anxiety within her. She knew that one mistake could bring her entire plan crashing down. The detectives then shifted their focus to Cedric Thorne, Giselle's husband initially. Cedric agreed to the partner-swapping arrangement, hoping it would reignite their marriage. But when he realized Giselle was solely fixated on Sawyer, he felt betrayed. From a mild-mannered husband, Cedric gradually lost control as he watched his wife become infatuated with another man. Cedric confided in friends that he wanted the situation to end, but Giselle insisted on maintaining her connection with Sawyer. Cedric's jealousy soon turned into an obsession as he realized his wife no longer belonged to him. Giselle's hateful remarks about Astrid, such as, if she weren't in the picture, everything would be easier, made Cedric start to question whether his wife had gone further than he ever imagined. Moore and Blake realized that Cedric might hold key information about Giselle's motives. Feeling that he was losing control, Cedric began to watch his wife closely, suspecting that she was hiding a dark secret even he wasn't aware of. On July 19th, Cedric was summoned to the Charleston Police Department. Though he tried to maintain his composure, the tension was evident on his face. Cedric admitted that their marriage had grown cold after 8 years together. The partner-swapping arrangement had initially brought some excitement, but when Giselle became fixated on Sawyer, Cedric felt excluded from his wife's life. She said that if Astrid wasn't in the picture, things would be easier for all of us. At the time, I thought it was just a joke, but now I'm not so sure, Cedric said, his voice filled with worry. What once seemed like harmless remarks now began to reveal a potential plot that Giselle may have been secretly planning all along. Cedric's confession made Moore and Blake realize that he possessed crucial information, even if he hadn't fully pieced it together himself. They decided to monitor his actions closely, hoping to uncover clues that could help them implicate Giselle. Cedric repeated, his voice trembling. Giselle said that if Astrid wasn't around, everything would be easier for all of us. I thought it was just a joke at the time, but now I'm not so sure. His words were laced with anxiety, as though he was slowly beginning to understand a horrifying truth that he had previously ignored. Though Cedric's testimony wasn't enough to incriminate Giselle, Moore and Blake realized he might be the key to unlocking the case's secrets. Cedric testified that on the night of the murder, he and Giselle had stayed home watching a movie before going to bed early, which matched Giselle's account. But a new piece of evidence cast doubt. Giselle might have left the house at a time Cedric was completely unaware of. When asked about his feelings toward Astrid, Cedric asserted that he had always seen her as a friend and had no reason to harm her. However, he admitted that his jealousy over Giselle's obsession with Sawyer had caused him to lose control. Many times, he and Giselle had engaged in heated arguments about her fixation on Sawyer, but Cedric didn't know how to resolve the issue. Watching his wife fall into a one-sided infatuation became a heavy blow to the family he had tried so hard to maintain. After hours of questioning, Moore decided to present new evidence. A pair of blood-stained gloves and a phone found discarded in Battery Park. Cedric was stunned by this revelation, shaking his head in denial, insisting he knew nothing about these items. How could she do something like this? His voice broke, his eyes vacant, unable to believe that the woman he once loved could be involved in such a brutal crime. Cedric's confusion only heightened the detective's suspicions, raising the question of whether he was hiding something. Though Cedric appeared cooperative, Moore and Blake still felt that he was withholding something about Giselle's behavior. They knew they needed to dig deeper into this complex relationship. Cedric seemed trapped in a whirlwind of doubt, his eyes filled with anxiety, as if he was torn between loyalty and fear of the truth. On the night of July 15th, Giselle made her move. After weeks of observing the Reed family, she had memorized their daily routines. She knew that Sawyer often worked late alone in his office while Astrid went to bed early, exhausted from work. Sensing her opportunity had arrived, Giselle believed she could carry out her plan without being caught. That night, confident that Sawyer was wearing his headphones and engrossed in his work, Giselle approached the Reed home. She knew that Astrid's bedroom window was usually left open and snuck in through this entry point, carrying a metal rod hidden in her yoga bag. Cold and full of resentment, she moved toward Astrid's bed. Astrid, fast asleep, was unaware of the looming danger Giselle felt. A disturbing sense of satisfaction as she swung the rod, delivering a fatal blow to Astrid's head. It all happened in silence and with chilling precision. After committing the crime, Giselle attempted to stage the scene as a break-in, smashing a few items and creating chaos to mislead the investigation. To further incriminate Cedric, she used his phone to send threatening messages to Astrid beforehand, ensuring the police would focus on Cedric as the prime suspect. Confident that she had erased all traces of evidence, Giselle believed she had executed her plan flawlessly. However, her overconfidence led to a fatal mistake. Traces of DNA left on the gloves, along with the fact that Cedric's phone was used at an unusual time, did not escape the forensic experts. Moore and Blake patiently pieced together each small detail, uncovering inconsistencies in Giselle's statements and timeline. All the clues gradually pointed to one conclusion. Only Giselle had both the motive and the opportunity to commit this heinous act. Giselle's arrogance had betrayed her. As the truth slowly unraveled, she realized that everything she had tried to hide was crumbling, and there was no way to escape the grasp of justice. At around 2 p.m. on July 20th, Detectives Moore and Blake arrived at Giselle's home with an arrest warrant. The overcast Charleston sky seemed to foreshadow the inevitable conclusion. As they entered the yoga class Giselle was instructing, the detectives noticed her calm demeanor and polite smile, as though everything was still under control. But as the arrest warrant was read aloud, panic immediately flashed in Giselle's eyes. Her confidence evaporated, leaving behind a trembling woman who had completely lost control. Giselle immediately denied all charges, insisting that she had been framed and that everything was just a coincidence. However, when Moore and Blake presented the irrefutable evidence, fingerprints and DNA on the gloves, her resilience crumbled, her eyes glazed over, and her body stiffened as she was left speechless. From a once strong woman, Giselle had become a hollow shell, shattered by the reality she had created. The atmosphere in the yoga studio became tense and heavy. Shock was evident on the faces of the students. The image of the strong, resilient instructor they once admired was now replaced by weakness and panic. Giselle was handcuffed and led away, leaving her students in stunned silence. All her schemes and calculations were now nothing more than shattered pieces of deceit and crime. Even as she wept and insisted that she had been framed, her feeble pleas could not change the undeniable truth that had been revealed. The once powerful and proud woman was now reduced to someone weak and desperate. Those who had once admired her were left in disbelief, witnessing the complete downfall of someone who had stood at the top. News of Giselle Thorne's arrest spread quickly, shocking the entire city of Charleston. Astrid's family felt a sense of relief knowing that justice had been served, but the pain of their loss remained a deep, unhealed wound. Sawyer Reed was completely devastated, unable to comprehend that the friend he once trusted had been the one to murder his wife. The betrayal plunged him into unimaginable grief and despair. The Reed family could only lean on each other to get through the crisis, with each passing day feeling like an ongoing silent battle no one wanted to face. At the Charleston Police Department, Detectives Moore and Blake sighed in relief, having finally identified the killer. However, they knew the legal battle ahead would be challenging. Every piece of evidence would need to be meticulously prepared to ensure that justice for Astrid was fully realized. The trial of Giselle Thorne began on September 15th, 2022. At the Charleston District Court, prosecutor Lisa Sanders argued that Giselle's obsession and desire to possess Sawyer drove her to commit murder. She presented irrefutable evidence: the blood-stained gloves, the phone left behind in Battery Park, all of which directly linked Giselle to the crime. Lisa emphasized that only Giselle had knowledge of the private details between Astrid and Sawyer, proving that she had meticulously planned to frame her husband for the murder. Giselle sat silently in the courtroom, her eyes vacant. Each accusation from the prosecutor felt like a dagger cutting through her pride. The defense attorney's arguments could not hide the truth. Giselle had destroyed herself due to her blind obsession and ambition. Once a strong and proud woman, Giselle was now a mere shadow of her former self. Her once confident eyes were now filled with despair, impossible to conceal. Each question from the prosecutor felt like a hammer blow, shattering the facade she had built and revealing an undeniable truth. All eyes in the courtroom were fixed on Giselle, and she could only bow her head in silent endurance. Each testimony, each piece of evidence, deepened the pain she had brought upon herself. All that remained was a woman trapped in her own web of schemes, with no escape. Defense attorney Michael Foster desperately tried to salvage the situation, arguing that Giselle was the victim of an elaborate plot. He claimed that the DNA could have been fabricated and that the true mastermind was Cedric. The jealous and resentful husband. Foster sought to plant doubt in the minds of the jury, suggesting that Cedric had lost control and framed his wife, accusing the police of overlooking crucial details during the investigation. No matter how skillful Foster was, he couldn't conceal the truth that was laid bare before the court. Every lie and every attempt at cover-up by Giselle was exposed by the light of justice. The woman who once controlled everything was now reduced to a failure, caught in the whirlwind of crime she had created. The trial turned into a tense showdown between truth and deceit. The jury listened to every detail, recognizing that each piece of evidence and every testimony played a crucial role in uncovering the truth. As the facts slowly unraveled the elaborate facade Giselle had constructed, everyone in the courtroom understood that despite the pain, justice had to be served for Astrid. When the final pieces of evidence were presented, Giselle was utterly defeated. Her lips trembled, unable to form any words. The courtroom was thick with tension and unease. Astrid's family sat in silence, their faces heavy with grief, but still yearning for justice. Sawyer, his eyes darkened from sleepless nights, stared at Giselle, his gaze a mix of rage and anguish. Every word of Foster's defense felt like a dagger in his heart, reopening the wounds of betrayal and pain he had endured. He clenched his fists, struggling to contain the overwhelming emotions surging inside him. Astrid's friends and colleagues sat quietly as well, their faces somber. The image of the dedicated wife and brilliant professional remained vivid in their minds. Her tragic death only deepened the sense of loss. Each question, each rebuttal, brought back painful memories, making the atmosphere even more suffocating. Giselle tried to maintain her composure, occasionally glancing at Sawyer with a fleeting look of confusion, as if attempting to send a silent message. But those glances quickly disappeared, replaced by a facade of calm. As prosecutor, Lisa Sanders presented the evidence that exposed the truth. Giselle's face momentarily changed. She tried to remain steady, as if reassuring herself that some miracle would rescue her from this situation. Her hands clenched tightly, and her gaze drifted, clinging to the faint hope that remained. Foster's arguments, though aimed at sowing doubt, couldn't obscure the facts. As Sanders laid out each piece of evidence, every detail illuminated Giselle's role in the crime. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. The evidence presented shattered the last slivers of hope Giselle had held onto. Her eyes were now vacant, the pride and confidence gone. Every accusation from the prosecutor struck like a hammer, dismantling the carefully constructed persona she had built. Everyone in the courtroom listened intently to every word. Every argument, all eyes were on Giselle, the once powerful woman now reduced to weakness, trembling, and defenseless. Each testimony, each piece of evidence, pushed her deeper into the undeniable truth she could no longer escape. Her schemes and plots were now just memories of someone who had plunged herself into a vortex of crime and deceit. After 3 tense days of trial, the jury reached a verdict. Giselle Thorne was found guilty of first-degree murder. The room fell into silence as the judge sentenced her to life imprisonment. Giselle's face was expressionless, her last glimmers of hope extinguished completely. Her plan to eliminate Astrid and frame Cedric had failed miserably. Once a powerful woman, Giselle was now just a faded shadow, crumbling in the light of justice. Those who had once trusted her were left in shock, witnessing the complete downfall of someone who had once stood at the top. Astrid's family finally had the chance to express the deep pain of their loss. Sawyer spoke about the despair his wife endured as she was hunted by Giselle's obsession. Astrid's death left an irreplaceable void in his heart and in the hearts of those who loved her. Though Giselle had been sentenced, the pain and loss remained. After leaving Charleston, Sawyer moved to a small town and founded a charity organization called the Astrid Foundation, dedicated to helping women and children in need. The foundation became not only a way for him to continue a compassionate mission, but also a means of keeping his eternal love for Astrid alive. Her memory inspired him to overcome his grief and spread the values she held dear. Each scholarship awarded, each act of kindness from the foundation served as a testament to the enduring love between Sawyer and Astrid. No longer consumed by sorrow, Sawyer chose to live a meaningful life, continuing the legacy of the woman he deeply cherished. Through the smiles and gratitude of those less fortunate, he gradually found peace, realizing that the love he and Astrid shared was still present in every good deed he performed. Meanwhile, Giselle Thorne, once a powerful and proud woman, was now nothing more than a faint shadow, imprisoned both physically and mentally. Her blind love for Sawyer had cost her everything, and each day in prison was a bitter reminder of the mistakes she had made. Cedric Thorne, though not directly involved in the crime, was also a victim of jealousy and betrayal. He left Charleston and started a new life in Atlanta, working every day to heal the emotional wounds of his broken marriage. Sawyer chose to face his pain with dedication. Every charitable project through the Astrid Foundation was a promise that their love would never be forgotten. With each scholarship given, each hand extended to help, Sawyer felt Astrid's presence as if she were still walking beside him, giving him strength for the new journey. He understood that their love would never truly end, but would live on in the good he brought to the world. Those who knew Astrid would always remember her as a symbol of compassion and an indomitable spirit. For Sawyer, every act of kindness was a way to continue their love story, a story that nothing could ever break. Our story today ends here. What do you think about this case? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit the like button and share it so we can be motivated to create more videos in the future. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and see you next time.